Okay, if you want to know what I've been doing, I took this and put it's basically this one, but I put a preamplifier on it. I tried to CNC this one, but I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't put a ground plane on it, if you can see that. But this one has a ground plane on it. I tried to make it work, but it didn't matter. And then this. Oh, that's good. This, I put this in there, and I found out that the brush was bad in it, in the back. It just measures open. It's always 10K. But brand new out of the package, so I used a heat gun to take that off. That's why it's all black on it. I was kind of mad because I had problems with this. But I got this to work really good. It really needs a bigger capacitor than this, 22,000 UF. It really needs like at least 44 or something like that. But I'm running out of space. But it does. This has a diode in it. It doesn't have, on this one you have to undo that solder lug that's right there. But on this one has a diode, so it will function there. It'll just kind of motorboat a little bit on the base side. If you had a bigger capacitor, it wouldn't, because it's going up through this, and it's taking the power from this, and the power comes from over here. And these little solder traces, they have a lot of resistance in them, and I don't have a resistor in front of these transistors, and that's what's causing it to motorboat, because it's actually motorboating this. It's taking the power down with it, and that's why it's doing that. But if you apply power to this, it gets rid of that, and it gets a lot louder. If you got a 4 ohm speaker, you're probably going to be looking at a max of 8 volts, or else these tend to clamp, and they're the same on these. And that's what this capacitor was for, try to get rid of the motorboating. This one. And it's these two, if you blow it up, these two transistors are going to blow up because they're going to self-clamp and they're going to go into thermal runaway. And they're regulated by these two diodes, the two bias, or the bases. And that combined with this resistor, and this resistor controls the clamp, and this resistor controls the bias, the centering of the bias. It's automatically centering, but the clamp is not automatically centering. It just, well, with these as far as these diodes will go, it will automatically centering. So you can use it on like batteries or something. That's the only reason those are there. It's either that or I have to use a voltage regulator. It would be better to use like a comparator IC or make a comparator circuit, but you're going to end up with like 50 transistors on one board. Maybe not 50, maybe like 20. But it's the same on here. You got there's the 1K for the clamp, which squeezes these two together, and the more you squeeze them together, the hotter they get. But if you don't squeeze them together, it's all distorted. And then you've got the I think it's a 270 right here. So if you wanted to run it at a higher voltage, you could put a higher value resistor in here. Instead of a 1K, you could use like a 4K or whatever it's going to come to. And this one, you'd want to adjust this to where it's centered if you were going to do that. But you may be surprised. If you run these at like 24 volts, it's just this little transistor. You may turn up the volume and it may not clip or overload, but it may just stop. And you'll find this not shorted, but like open. So these will only go so far. It's actually possible to blow them up just using them if you use too much voltage on them. But an 8 ohm speaker, it does function at 9. Pretty fair, but it's pretty easy to get thermal runaway after 9. I mean, right at 9, not 0.2 or anything like that. So it does get fairly loud. It gets pretty freaking loud. It does do a full bass response. It really needs a bigger capacitor. And also I got an anti-ripple filter, so as the rippling gets worse and worse, which is the bass mostly, you're going to hear the bass cancel itself out, and when you put a capacitor on the back here, you'll see it come back in. Or you can just put a capacitor on the power supply that's coming in here. You're going to need a pretty big one. it turned out to be bigger than I thought it would. The way they used to handle that is it just used to not get as loud because they'd put a resistor on the end of the collector, or the collector here. But that's basically what I've been doing. I've been kind of refining this. I'm going to send you this too, but that's why there's a capacitor there. It's to try to prevent that bass from getting back in here. It's mostly bass that's getting through here, because that's what's dragging the power supply down the most. And I've been changing a couple of values on this to refine it. Now that I got decent speakers, I got 2 decent speakers that are the same type, and I can actually run it, even though they're 4 ohms. The reason I don't like these is because they have kind of a 1 kilohertz sound, and they don't produce a lot of bass unless you really drive them hard, and it's you actually need a pretty big transformer to be able to produce enough bass response, if you like bass response. Or either that, or it's just going to sound like one of those old transistor radios from, you know, those little tiny ones that sound like crap. But yeah. Not a good deal. What I meant to say earlier is these 2 diodes, they don't control, well, they control the clamp between these 2. They keep the voltage separated, because the more voltage you put here, it attempts to regulate it, but they're just silicon diodes. So the more and more voltage you apply to them, the more and more clamp these are going to get. That's what I meant to say, is clamp.